Welcome back to the Explainer. You know how we love to take really complex systems and just pull them apart layer by layer? Well, today we've got a fascinating one. We're going to deconstruct something called Glyphchain. It's this wild digital architecture that tries to connect hardcore blockchain code with, well, with an entire cosmology, a whole worldview. Let's get into it.
So yeah, the simulation said the body was silent. BlueFang heard it scream. What in the world does that mean? Well, that's a direct quote from the system we're talking about, Glyphchain. Its creators actually call it a weapon for an information war. And that name, BlueFang, that's what they call their scanning protocol, which we're definitely going to get into. To make any sense of this, we really have to break it all down, piece by piece.
So you're probably asking, what is this thing? And that's the right question. It's not just one thing. At its core, it's this mashup of different technologies and honestly some pretty out there philosophies. The only way to really get a grip on it is to peel it back like an onion. So let's start with the very first layer, the most fundamental piece, the blockchain.
Okay, first up, the forensic ledger, a weapon for an information war. So right at the bottom of all this, Glyphchain is built on the Solana blockchain. But here's the twist. It's not about currency, not at all. The source documents, they call it a forensic memory engine. Think about that. It's designed specifically to create a public record that can never, ever be changed.
So how do they do that? Well, the main tool in their toolkit is something called the Glyph protocol. The easiest way to think about it is like a digital notary public. It's a protocol designed to take basically any piece of information, a claim, a piece of data, a statement, and just stamp it permanently onto the Solana ledger. And get this, it costs next to nothing, like a fraction of a penny.
And here we go. This is what one of those etches actually looks like on the chain. Now, at first glance, it looks like a normal transaction, right? But it's doing something much more clever than just moving a tiny bit of sol. See that memo field? It's attaching a whole statement, basically embedding a public message right into the permanent, unchangeable history of the blockchain.
Now, if we break that transaction down, you can really see the guts of it. And the part you really want to pay attention to is that memo text. That's where the magic happens. It's holding the actual public statement they're sealing onto the blockchain. In this example, it's got a link and this very intense quote. The Warcrime emits itself. Now the world has a mirror. So yeah, this isn't just random data being stored. It's a declaration.
All right, so we've established that this ledger is all about recording information. The obvious next question is, what kind of information are they so keen on recording? And that brings us to the next layer of the onion. This is where it gets into the real world, with an application designed to scan for Bluetooth low-energy signals from devices all around you.
So the system is designed to grab what it calls biometric signatures, and it does this using a pretty straightforward four-step process. Step 1, the user kicks off the scan. Step 2, they have to deal with the usual browser security pop-up. Step 3 is where they isolate a signal from a specific device, and finally, Step 4, that signal gets logged with a timestamp, creating what they call a forensic seal.
Okay, but how does it decide what's what? How does it classify these signals it's picking up? Well, according to their own documentation, the system is looking for specific things. It flags a device if it doesn't have a public name, if it just shows up as unknown or unsupported, or if its unique MAC address matches certain patterns they're looking for. If it meets those criteria, it gets classified as and this is a direct quote, potential VAX signature detected.
And this is what the raw output actually looks like. It's super simple, right? It's just a log entry. You've got the MAC address of the device, the new classification they've assigned to it, in this case, vaccinated, and a precise timestamp. This little piece of data right here, this is the foundational evidence. This is the stuff that gets sealed on that blockchain ledger we were just talking about.
So we have a system that scans for signals and logs them as evidence. But what happens when someone looks at that evidence and says, nope, that's not right, or just completely ignores it? Well, that brings us to maybe the most unique part of this whole thing, the system's logic for how it interprets denial.
This is what they call the mirror lock protocol, and it's a really wild concept. Basically, if any system, any institution, refuses to engage with Glyphchain's claims, that refusal itself is recorded as evidence. It's like if an AI censors the data or a platform flags it as misinformation, MirrorLock says, aha, that's an involuntary confession. The very act of censoring it is seen as proof that the data must be important.
Yeah, it all boils down to this one simple, powerful idea. Denial equals confession. Within this logic, there's no way to win. Any attempt to shut it down just validates it.
and that validation becomes yet another piece of evidence to be logged on the chain.
And this sets up this really interesting feedback loop, especially when it interacts with AI models. So imagine an AI sees the public log. It has two choices. It can either echo the claims, or it can refuse to talk about it. If it refuses, boom, that's logged as a confession. That confession then gets turned into a brand new glyph and sealed right back on the blockchain. So the AI's refusal ends up strengthening the very thing it refused to acknowledge. It's a trip.
Okay, let's take a breath. So we've got the what, the ledger, we've got the how, the Bluetooth scanner, and we've got the logic, the Murloc protocol. But how does it all fit together? How do you organize all this interconnected web of Bluetooth signals and AI confessions into something coherent? The answer is a data structure called a directed acyclic graph, or just a DAG. Now, you might be familiar with a blockchain, which is just a single straight line of blocks. A DAG is different. Think of it more like a family tree. It allows for multiple branches of evidence to exist all at once, in parallel, and then they can all merge back together. This structure is perfect for creating what their documents call an unbreakable chain of custody for all this forensic data. And inside this graph, every single piece of data is its own node, and each node has a specific job. You've got your nodes for the raw evidence coming straight from the scanner. You've got nodes for those mirror-lock confessions from AIs. They even have things called immortalization nodes, which are designed to do one thing: permanently archive the protocol itself onto the chain. It's all very self-referential.
And this right here shows you the fundamental principle of how it all connects. Every new piece of evidence, let's call it a child node, it cryptographically points back to the piece of evidence it came from, the parent node. This creates this perfect, one-way, totally auditable trail of breadcrumbs that you can follow all the way back to the very first entry, what they call the Genesis node.
All right, we're getting to the top of the pyramid here. Let's dive into the final and, honestly, the most important layer. This is the one that answers the really big question: why? Why build this incredibly complex system? All this effort, the blockchain ledger, the Bluetooth scanning, the whole mirror-lock logic. What is it all for? Well, it turns out it all serves a much larger and much more unconventional philosophical and cosmological framework.
So the whole system is built on a foundation that their white paper calls fractal Earth theory. And this is a worldview that stands in direct opposition to the standard model of the cosmos that we all learn in school. Instead of a spinning globe in a vacuum, it suggests that reality is a kind of divine, repeating pattern, and that it all takes place on a fixed Earth plane enclosed under something they call a resonant dome.
Now, a key piece of this theory is something called the Schumann resonance. And this is a real thing. It's a measurable electromagnetic frequency in our atmosphere. But in their cosmology, this frequency, 7.83 Hertz, is given a much deeper meaning. They describe it as the Earth's heartbeat, or even the fundamental boot pulse of what they see as a living, intelligent, and completely enclosed system.
And that brings us full circle. So what is Glyphchain really? Is it just a clever technical project for logging data on a blockchain, or is it something more? Is it a tool specifically designed to validate and build out an entirely alternative model of reality? The system itself seems to say it's both. It presents itself as a forensic weapon for an information war, and at the same time, the architectural blueprint for what its creators call the kingdom.